Understandest what thou readest in the King James Version? Today I'm going to talk about what you should do when you disagree with a dictionary. 3 of them, in fact, and on our way I'm going to teach you the meaning of a false friend in the King James. And at the end, I need to have a little family chat with my supporters. To start, let's look at a passage of Scripture that I've loved for decades. I grew up reading the Sermon on the Mount. I've loved it ever since I was a child. As a young adolescent Christian, first taking his faith seriously, I read and reread Matthew 5 through 7 in the King James Version. And I took seriously everything Jesus said. I still do. But I accidentally took seriously some things he didn't say. And one of them is something very specific that I thought he said, but he didn't. I was mistaken in my understanding of our Lord's statement because of language change between 1611 and my childhood. This is what he said. Can you spot the word I misunderstood? But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. That's Matthew 6:6. What word do you think I misunderstood? How do you think language change has affected our ability to understand the King James here? Make a comment. I would love to hear from you. I'll tell you, however, right now, I misunderstood the word closet. Now, this did not cause a massive fault in my theology. It didn't cause me to sin or even fail to do something that was right. And I simply do not recall whether I ever actually entered into my literal closet to pray. It wouldn't have been a problem if I did. In order to get to the meaning of the Greek word translated closet here, however, because this is a false friend, let's look at the way the King James translators translate this Greek word, translated closet, in Matthew 6:6. How do they translate it elsewhere in the New Testament? The King James translators translate this word 3 different ways in the 4 different times it appears. It appears also in Luke 12:3, where the King James translators also use the word closets to translate it. Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops. That's Luke 12:3. But the King James translators also use the words secret chambers to translate this Greek word. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. That's Matthew 24:26. The King James translators also use the word storehouse. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which neither have storehouse nor barn, and God feedeth them. How much more are ye better than the fowls? I love that line from Luke 12:24. The King James translators see the same 2 basic senses for this Greek word that my favorite Greek English lexicon sees, and they offer translations of it that are sensitive to context. They aren't slavishly literal, which should be no surprise because they said they wouldn't be in their preface. Indeed, the Greek word in the phrase enter into thy closet can mean either storeroom or a room in the interior of the house, an inner room. A closet in contemporary English is a room in the interior of the house, an inner room, but it's more specific than that, isn't it? It's a very particular kind of inner room, one in which we keep clothing. Or is it? Look carefully at what the New Oxford American Dictionary says about the meaning of this English word, closet. I tracked with them until the last 4 words. A tall recess or wardrobe with a door used for storage. He has a closet full of designer suits. A small room, especially one used for storing things, or for private study. Or for private study? I admit to being rather surprised. I don't think I've ever heard the word closet used to refer to a small room used for private study. Now stop right there. What am I supposed to do now? Here's the dictionary telling me, a lifelong native English speaker, that a given word means something, at least to some people, that I didn't know it meant to any English speakers. It tells me something that, indeed, I don't think it means. I could be wrong, but I don't think I've ever heard a contemporary American English speaker, or British one, or Kenyan, or Australian, or whatever, refer to a small room used for private study as a closet. If someone did so, I would cock my head and squint my eye. What do I do now? 2 things. I check other dictionaries, and if I'm still not satisfied, I check a linguistic corpus in order to check up on the other dictionaries. Sure enough, Merriam-Webster includes not only the sense I'm familiar with, a small windowless room for storing things, especially clothing, but also includes this sense, an apartment or small room for privacy. And the American Heritage Dictionary has something similar, a small private chamber as for study or prayer. We'll save the Oxford English Dictionary for later, but I'm bamboozled. Are you? I just feel sure I can't be wrong here. I know English. And yet I have 3 dictionaries lined up against me, all contradicting me at the same time, like 3 petulant and disrespectful middle schoolers. I'm not ready to give in. So I'm going to appeal to my favorite linguistic corpus. I searched the Now corpus, news on the web, to redo the work of the lexicographers, to look for myself at how speakers of contemporary English use the word closet. Not surprisingly, the vast majority of uses refer to rooms for storing clothes. On a whim, she had taken my grandma's dress out of the closet, and she thought it might be perfect. Or, he's going to wear the suit that he's had in his closet for the past 5 to 10 years. Or, it's now time to make sure your closet is stocked with loungewear sets you'll want to reach for over and over. These are real-life uses of the word closet from very recent news articles. The context in each case clearly indicates that a closet is a place where you store clothing. I found in the Now corpus that many uses of closet now occur in the phrase walk-in closet, because this is still a luxury item for a lot of people, me included. I've never had one, though a 1946 home that we used to live in Greenville, South Carolina, did have one that came close, and that was kind of nice. Frequently, the closet is used as a metonymy to refer to all of one's clothes. Here's an example. Regardless of the weather, a baby tee is a closet essential we need to stock up on when it's on sale. This is the sense intended when someone speaks of a closet staple or a closet classic, such as a little black dress or, for men, a certain jacket. Interestingly, wardrobe is used the same way as closet. It was originally a piece of furniture, but is used now even more often, I'd say, to speak of someone's whole collection of clothing, or a portion of it, like a fall wardrobe or a winter wardrobe. Sometimes the kind of closet that's being referred to in these Now articles is specified, like a coat closet or a hall closet or linen closet or broom, trophy, or audio closets. Those are all examples I found there. And for those of you who are desperately wanting to know if the WC lives on, I did see the phrase water closet used about 5 or 6 times. Sometimes the word closet does get used in contemporary English in these news articles to refer to small storage rooms without windows that are not for clothes. You'll at least learn to appreciate the activity more with this Dyson vacuum in your closet. Unlike other models, this best-selling vacuum has a cordless design that makes it, etc., etc. Some news items spoke of a toy closet program, meaning a charitable program in which you grab from your own small cupboard or windowless room full of toys to give those toys away. I should mention that I did see a number of mentions of closet as an adjective, like closet communist, in other words, a hidden communist, and closet lesbian, which used to be closeted lesbian. And of course, I saw a number of references to being in the closet, meaning a secret homosexual. I usually stop at around 100 uses of a given word when I check the Now corpus. That's usually enough for my purposes. But I was determined this time to see whether my English gut was right or not about closet. I looked at a full 300 uses, well, 299, since one of them was actually a misspelling of the word closest. Never once, in 300 different uses of the word closet, did I see that word used to refer to a room for private study. So what do I make of all this? Here are the possibilities. First, perhaps I didn't look at enough examples. If I looked at 500 uses of closet, or 5,000, maybe I'd discover one that meant small room used for private study. I cannot discount that possibility. Second, perhaps I'm looking at the wrong corpus. Maybe news articles on the internet from around the world don't use the word closet this way, private study, that sense, but maybe a few works of literary fiction do. But I'm not easily able to check this since I don't read a lot of literary fiction and I can't search my whole Kindle library at once. I can search only book by book. I can search Logos this way, and I did. But here's the thing, when I do this, I'm rocketing around from context to dissimilar context, from today to a 19th century sermon and back to a 1950s era commentary. It would take a lot of time for me to really process all this data. And YouTube doesn't wait. A great value of the Now corpus, as I now see, is that it doesn't do this to me. I'm safe inside one genre of writing, a genre meant to be consumed by the everyman. But again, this may be my problem. I need to look at other linguistic corpuses, perhaps. Frankly, I lack the tools. If I worked at Merriam-Webster, I assume I'd have them. Third, perhaps Merriam-Webster and the American Heritage Dictionary are preserving older senses again, something that I've caught them doing quite a number of times in the past. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that in a dictionary. You'd kind of want it to err on the conservative side until what you really need to know is how many people out there will understand you or misunderstand you based on your word choice. That's what you're paying the lexicographers to do when you buy a dictionary. You're paying them to be guides for you as you read and guides for you as you write. Here's my best guess as a professional writer and editor for over half my life. I think we're dealing with a combination of possibilities 2 and 3. I don't think the now corpus will ever show me a use of closet that means private study. But I think the word probably does still show up among literarily oriented writers, people who write high fiction and challenging essays. Language is so amazing. Part of the fun and challenge of being such a writer is holding on to obscure senses of words that are sort of hanging off the edge of the language. Like those little bits of coffee grounds that I wipe off the edges of my portafilter when I make espresso each morning here in the Pacific Northwest, where it's actually required by law that we drink espresso every morning. I also think that all three of my major contemporary dictionaries are being too conservative. Even the New Oxford, which usually doesn't do this to me, but sticks to English as it currently is spoken and written by the vast majority of at least moderately educated people. It's only a tiny group of speakers who can cling to the edge of the portafilter like that. Language is not cut and dry. It has gray areas and edge cases. And because of this, you don't have to bow before the dictionary. You can disagree with it occasionally, even when, as I do, you generally trust it. But there is one dictionary I rarely feel the need to disagree with, one whose quality has proven itself to me over and over throughout the years. That is, of course, the Oxford English Dictionary. The OED gives the sense I expect, the one that I've heard and read and used my entire life. A recess or space adjoining a room, generally closed off by a door or doors reaching to the floor and used for storage of clothes, linen, utensils, household supplies, etc. A built-in cupboard, a wardrobe. The OED also gives some hints as to why the King James uses the word closet in Matthew 6:6, and as to why I've come to feel that the word is a false friend. It gives this sense: a private or secluded room, an inner chamber. But it also gives this comment: that sense is now chiefly used in historical contexts. It explains, such rooms were formerly often reserved for particular purposes, such as prayer or religious contemplation or attention to one's appearance. In later use, the word generally denotes a small room. This sense is not, in the judgment of the OED lexicographers, obsolete, and yet it's used chiefly in historical contexts. But not only historical contexts, they did find this instance from 2012. Joanna Bailey wrote for the closet, but longed for the stage. That is precisely the kind of literary use I was talking about. Joanna Bailey wasn't writing for the clothes closet or the linen closet, but apparently for the small, private room where one might privately read to oneself. And this use of this sense of the word closet was found in a scholarly book that Amazon classifies as part of literature and fiction, history and criticism. I think we have a false friend because I just don't think it's realistic to expect the plowboy to know this obscure, chiefly historical use that is found, if ever, only in scholarly or literary books. The first sense that comes to the plowboy's mind when the plowboy hears, "Go to your closet to pray," will be the clothes closet, I guarantee you. The plowboy will not realize that he is misunderstanding this word closet. And I know that because I'm him. I'm the plowboy. Why can't we just say what literally all the major modern translations say? Something like, "Go into your inner room," or "Go to your room by yourself to pray." Now, I have one particular extreme King James onlyist who absolutely piles scorn on me with 2 dashes of bile, 3 pints of acid, and a splash of vitriol for saying that some King James words have passed out of the language or have changed their senses. I'm going to be straightforward here because I feel I must explain why I won't engage him directly, those of you who can figure out who I'm talking about, and why I won't even name him. Fact is, he can hardly write a sentence without a sneer. It's rather difficult to have a conversation with someone who pauses every 2 seconds to tell you how smart he is compared to you, and how patently idiotic you are compared to him. If I ever talk like this to my Christian opponents, shoot me. A text. Tell me I've sinned. I pray I'll listen. I think closet is a perfect example of the kind of thing this King James only extremist has pointed to with certain of my other false friends. He's found residual literary coffee grounds. Some speakers of a language live in old books, and more power to them. Or they live in high literary fiction or challenging academic works that the rest of us don't even know exist. More power to them. I have occasionally picked up books that were bewilderingly difficult, and I was suitably humbled. But once these readers come down from their high literary mountains or step out of their literary time machines and back into our linguistic and literary world, I'd encourage them not to think of themselves more highly than they ought to think, but to remember the plowboy, the man on the street, the man for whom Tyndale died. I actually like my main Bible translation to include some literary English. I love my ESV that I've got right here on my desk, and I'll grab in 1 second. Here it is. I love this edition of it in particular, the Legacy Heirloom. But if I have a choice between a technically accurate sense of a word, but a sense that has mostly passed out of the language, and an accessible word that everyone will know, I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to check the Hebrew or Greek to see if God used a technically accurate sense of a Hebrew or Greek word that had at that time mostly passed out of the language. Then I'm going to say to myself about 99.9% of the time, God didn't do that. He apparently used a then common sense of a then common word. According to his own principle, edification requires intelligibility. Then I'm going to pick a contemporary English word that is fully intelligible to the average person. If at all possible, I'm going to use that for my translation. It's almost always possible. Let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber, and the bride out of her closet, Joel 2:16. That didn't mean she was trying on clothes and had to come out. And Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount was not counseling people to jam themselves into the tiny space on the floor underneath their clothes when they pray. Closet is false friend 94. Lord willing, we'll make it to false friend 100 on the morning of December 31st. You won't want to miss it. It will be a big one. Now for that family chat. I was not a good fit at Crossway. They are super great folks. I spent real time with the leadership there. I'm even more a fan of the ESV than I was before because I have seen up close the personal godliness and care and academic rigor that the leaders there have when it comes to my favorite Bible translation. But it became clear that the role I took just wasn't really for me. A second role they offered me proved to be an even worse fit. It really required an in-house guy, and my wife and I feel committed to staying where we are in Washington State for the sake of our family, for the sake of her own blossoming flower farm, and for the sake of the church that we both faithfully attend and serve in. I was not expecting to be jobless this year, but for the first time since I was a teenager, I am unemployed. On the one hand, this has been a little scary. On the other, the very day I found out that I was going to be leaving Crossway a few months after that, I talked to my wife from the airport and I told her what was brimming in my heart. This is our chance, honey, I said, for me to go out on my own. I could serve Christ's body full time with YouTube and web design. Whatever YouTube doesn't bring in, web design will need to pick up the slack for. So I've got plans to provide even more value on YouTube, and I'm asking for your support. There are 2 big ways to support my mission of serving the church by promoting trust in and wise use of our many good English Bible translations. First, become a regular supporter. If you want to just give, Patreon is a great place to do that. You'll get little gifts back at Patreon if you support me monthly, like an Edification Requires Intelligibility sticker or mug. But if you want more content, YouTube is the place for that. I've got plans that I will unveil very soon, Lord willing, for greater value that I'm planning to provide through YouTube. I have something I intend to launch January 1st. There's my teaser. Second way to support me, I need websites to host, especially church websites. If you want to support my work, would you be willing to give me work? Consider finding out who hosts your own church website and seeing if your church leadership would be willing to host with me instead. My pricing for design and hosting is at forwarddesigner.net/pricing. You gotta pay someone to host your church site. If you host with me, you support the work of ending Bible translation tribalism and replacing it with multi-translation paradise. If I cannot make it on my own, I will have to take a job. I have about a year, I think, to try this out, given our current savings and current income. Several of the jobs I looked at, full-time ones, were such intense jobs that I don't think I could continue my YouTube work while doing them. I just couldn't bring myself to drop what has become for me the most life-giving work I do, however. Church website design is also life-giving, but I don't want to do it and only it full-time. I didn't go through a decade of graduate-level biblical studies training to be a designer, despite my love for it. My aim and my prayer are that I could use a combination of your support and monthly website hosting to fund my work on YouTube. Will you join in? More exciting details to come, as I said before.